is Abi Kennedy. I'm a current PhD student at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, and I'm here to share with you my experience with mental health, particularly over the past 14 months of my life for the Committed series. I hope that what I'm sharing can help you in some way, and thank you for taking the time to listen and watch. So I have not identified as a person who struggled particularly with mental health throughout my life. I certainly have had periods in my life where I have struggled and been a little down and probably depressed and kind of found myself bouncing back out of it over a pretty short period of time. 14 months ago, in February of 2014, I broke my ankle. It's not a great story. I've been told I need to come up with a better story, but it was winter here in Ohio, and on a icy day, also raining, and I slipped on some ice that I couldn't see and broke my ankle. I had sprained it many times, and it was pretty weak, so I was told that it's likely a good fall would break it, and that's exactly what happened. I broke it in 4 places and also dislocated it. I was in the hospital for 2 nights and had surgery. Now have a really great scar and a metal plate and 10 screws in my ankle. The result of this injury really changed a lot for me. It changed me, it changed who I was, it changed how I saw the world, and it affected my mental health. I was Before this, was a very independent person. I lived with a family member, but did a lot of my own. I always have. I've lived alone. I've moved across the country alone. I've traveled internationally alone, and really I've considered myself a very independent person. And after I broke my ankle, I didn't walk for 8 weeks. And that's a big adjustment. It was a lot to get used to. It was a lot to not be able to do so much on my own. And what I had done independently, I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't drive. I obviously couldn't walk. I was lucky to get to the bathroom and to shower on my own. But I couldn't cook, which I love to do. I couldn't drive, which I love to do. I was kind of pretty bound to my couch and my bed. I did get back to classes after a while, but I had to depend on others for food and for a lot, to go shopping, all the things that I sort of enjoyed doing on my own. I couldn't really do anymore. And it had a toll on me in a way that I wouldn't have expected. It also affected school. I kind of thought initially, maybe I'll take an incomplete, but I will get back to classes and I'll be fine. I was taking 3 classes at the time. And certainly thought I would be okay, and that's not how things happened. I was getting around on a knee scooter, where the leg that you can't use, you kneel onto the scooter and then use your leg to kind of push yourself around. It gave me a measure of independence that I was really thankful for. Certainly didn't have as much fun with it as some may have had because it could go pretty fast. So having an injured ankle, I didn't do much crazy with it. And I actually attended NASPA and ACPA last year on the knee scooter, which probably wasn't a great idea, but I did it. And it was important to me to still be there, and I think was a good way for me to stay connected when I wasn't really identifying how I was struggling yet, but it was connecting to the profession and seeing colleagues, and I was a member of the NASPA 4 East Regional Board at the time, and really wanted to be a part of what was happening there. Probably about April, as I was talking with someone, I have no idea who it was now, they were asking how I was doing and said, as I was responding to sort of what I had lost in terms of independence, said, oh, that's probably pretty depressing. And I had an aha moment from hearing that I think I was a little depressed. And it was the first time that I had admitted to myself almost 2 months later that I was depressed. And all I could really say is I wasn't feeling myself. And I could have identified that there were other times in my life that I was probably depressed. So I kind of thought, okay, I'm probably depressed. I tweeted about it, sort of got some support and hang in there, and maybe you should go see someone. And I knew all that stuff. I've worked in student affairs. I've been to some counseling, encouraged other people to go, but I didn't think I needed it. Not yet. And maybe I wasn't ready in a lot of ways. And summer went on and time marched on, and I didn't finish my coursework. I took incompletes and everything, which was probably a sign I should have taken a medical leave of absence, but I didn't. Hindsight is 2020 in that way. And a family member that was living with me moved in June, and it was my dad. We were very close, so that shifted things as well. I was now living alone. I was going through some pretty intense physical therapy, starting in late April, and was in a boot for a short amount of time, but walking, but stairs were nerve-wracking. It was hard for me to, sort of have a normal gait and a normal walk, and it's exhausting to be mentally and physically when you're recovering from a major injury. And little did I know what effect it was really having on me at the time. Friends were checking in and asking how I was doing, telling me, maybe I should go to the counseling center on campus, and, really thankful for their concern. And I knew I wasn't myself, but I think I struggled because I couldn't really tell how. I couldn't really describe in what ways I wasn't myself or how I wasn't feeling myself. I didn't have a way to describe it. I could point to the physical thing that I was recovering from, and I have a scar to show for it, but what was happening on the inside I didn't have words for, and I couldn't describe in a great way. And when you just say I don't feel normal, it's hard for anybody to kind of know what that means. And I remember pretty distinctly on a morning in July, I believe it was a Friday, I woke up and was crying all morning for really no reason. I had struggled with emotions and been sleeping a lot and really struggled with motivation and had not made much progress on my schoolwork in July, which was a problem. And finally just knew I had to do something, that I needed help, that whatever I had been trying wasn't working, and I was not going to snap out of this like I had before. And so I knew that BGSU's Counseling Center had open hours in the afternoon from 1 to 5 p.m., I believe. And that's how they do all their initial intake. So I knew I didn't have to have an appointment. And I got up and I got dressed, probably ate something, and certainly took my time, and finally dragged myself to the Counseling Center about 3 p.m. And, I believe that things happen for a reason. I believe in God, and I believe in the way that things are supposed to happen, and ultimately really believe that God put the person on call that day who was supposed to see me. And so I went in to see the on-call counselor, and spent an hour or more, probably an hour and a half, just crying, describing breaking my ankle, describing how I didn't know how I was feeling, describing what physical therapy was like. I'm not sure if he could even understand me, but he listened, and had a very fatherly, grandfatherly reaction. He also had an ankle injury in the fall, and in some ways could identify with what I was going through, and that brought me some comfort. And for the first time, even though I couldn't really describe how I wasn't myself, I was trying, and somebody was listening, and I was talking about myself more than I had in a long time. I'm open, and I'm an open person, but this sharing this aspect of myself I hadn't really done before, and it felt a little freeing. It felt like, okay, this is a step in the right direction. And I knew it meant I needed more counseling. I knew it meant I needed to keep seeing him. And actually that was a conversation that we had. He asked, he was just there to be the on-call person, and asked how I felt, who I would like to see in the future, and kind of was very delicate about it. And as I expressed a couple things, he asked how I felt about continuing to see him, and that he would be interested in that. And that felt perfect. It felt like a perfect fit for me, and has continued to be such a blessing in my life. We met once a week for the remainder of the summer, and have continued to meet about every 2 weeks. In fact, I met with him today, and make another appointment every time I'm there. He's been a great support through the last year, 14 months or so. Well, I guess since July, so just, I don't know, 9 months, 7, 8, 9 months. At the end of our first session, too, he also asked how I felt about some medication. He's not a psychiatrist, but said, had I ever thought about it, and would I like a referral to the health center to see someone to talk about some medication. I don't have any problems with medication. I take a regular medication for a medical syndrome that I have. I've known friends and family members who've been on antidepressants and been on medication before. And it still felt a little daunting to admit it, but I said, yeah, I wanted to talk to somebody. And so I was able to get a referral and have my information sent over to the health center and get an appointment early the next week. And I was prescribed Lexapro, an antidepressant, and I've been on that since then. And the combination, I think, of the medication and of the counseling has really saved me in a lot of ways. I had a lot of things happen in counseling, that a lot of revelations, a lot of understandings about myself, of what the last year, even before then, I had sort of been dealing with and struggling with. And someone asked me if I thought I would have dealt with the same things had I not broken my ankle. And I said, probably not. But all that stuff was still there. All the stuff was sort of under the surface. And breaking my ankle made me have to deal with it. It sort of brought me to a point that I couldn't kind of push it under and pretend it wasn't there anymore. I was sort of trying to get through school, and now I had to deal with it. I had to admit what was happening. I had to admit some of the imposter syndrome. I've been a good student, and all of a sudden, I was struggling with school. I wasn't completing things. I took incompletes in all my classes for the spring, and I wasn't making progress for the summer. I was facing academic probation, trying to get extended incompletes, facing maybe dropping out of the program. And do I drop out? Do they want me here? What's next? Can I still do this? I had quit a job and turned down another job offer to come and be a student full time. And I felt like I was struggling, and my ability to, knock out a paper really quickly wasn't happening anymore. And some of my identity in being a student was gone. And school had kind of been my life for the last year and a half before then, 2 years. And I needed something else outside, and my counselor really was able to encourage me to find other things and find the friends that really meant something to me and supported me through my ankle. I have been attending a church since the fall in town that has really saved me in a lot of ways. It's given me a connection to life outside of school. It's given me a connection to friends. I'm singing in the choir, and getting some of my life and connection to the things that I love back as well. And I really started to identify struggling with lack of motivation and lack of purpose. That in my assistantship, which has been fantastic, and my supervisor has been fantastic, there was an administrative change about a year and a half into my assistantship that brought a lot of ambiguity, a lot of unknown, a lot of not change day to day, but sort of in the bigger picture things that I was doing. A lot changed, and I struggled a lot with feeling like my work wasn't purposeful and meaningful. It was hard for me to get up and go to work. I didn't hate the job, but I wasn't motivated to be there, and really started to miss being someone's supervisor and being a mentor and guiding someone in residence life, and seeing changes in students throughout their time in on-campus housing and in a disciplinary conduct process. And I missed RA training, which felt crazy at the time to say it, but I missed it. I missed having a staff. I missed having people around. I don't interact with students a lot in my enrollment management role, so I really started to identify that I needed to find some purpose. I needed to find some other things, and I needed to find some identity that wasn't just connected to school anymore. But I still wanted to stay in school, and I fought really hard to find a way to get through, and completed 2 courses in the fall, one through a gift of a professor who gave me more grace than I was owed, and I had to retake a class this spring, after technically failing the class from not completing the incomplete. But I am proud to say that I have completed my coursework. I was supposed to have done it a year ago, and I have fought hard to be in this place and to have this moment and to be done with coursework and to move forward. My advisor, in the midst of trying to help me figure out where my journey was taking me and what that meant, said to me when I said I want to finish, said it would be a big tragedy if I don't finish, but certainly wanted to help me in figuring this out on my own time. And I've identified that what's next for me is a job, a full-time job. Again, back in residence life, I've been job searching and participated in the placement exchange before NASPA. I've had a few on-campus interviews, and I'm waiting on one right now that I just returned from. And I'm hopeful to what I may be in store for me in the future. I don't know what medication and treatment looks like for me in the future. I'm not making any drastic changes, and plan to hope to continue to see a counselor therapist when and if I move this summer for a new job. The medication and the struggle may be long term. I don't really know what this means for me, but it's been a big shift to at the age of almost 35 now, to be in a new struggle and in a new fight for my mental health. But understanding myself and my ability and my resiliency in a new way. I think despite knowing I'm still struggling and still learning, I feel healthier and in a lot of ways in a better mental place than I ever have been. Despite there still being struggles and still being days that I struggle and still having some depressed days. And I also I know has really affected my family. I'm the oldest of 4 children, and I'm particularly close to my 2 sisters. Right after being starting to see my counselor and going on the medication, I visited them in California, and we took a couple-day trip to Las Vegas. And I know it was hard for them to see me struggle and to see me in a place and not really be able to help a lot, but they were exactly what I needed. One of them kept me smiling and laughing and was making jokes about sort of depressed Abby, and the other one kind of was like, it's too early for jokes, and was more sensitive and checking in and asking how I was, but both of them were exactly what I needed, and really they didn't treat me any differently. I was still their sister, and they supported me in a way that I couldn't have even put into words to ask for. They kept me smiling and started to refer to this as an Abby reboot. That I was still Abby and I was still in there. I just needed a reboot. I needed to sort of find myself, and that the rest of the year would just get better. And it didn't get better overnight, but things have certainly improved and gotten better. I have learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about my ability. Being depressed at a point in your life when you didn't expect it has not been easy, and it's a transition that I have struggled with, and I have really fought hard over the last 14 months to get to this point. And I don't know what the future holds. I have worked hard to sort of know when to disclose and how to disclose it and how to talk about it, especially in the job search process. But I believe that as I talk about what I think is right for me in the next step and why I think a job is better than staying here, and just focusing on the dissertation full time is better for my mental health, can be hard to describe, and hard to get people to understand. I know either path is going to present its own journeys, but I also believe that I'm going to get to the end of my PhD journey, even if it takes me more time than I thought I would. No one plans a major injury. And I've tried to be open with what the last year has been like, and I've gotten great response. My family and friends and colleagues around me have been super supportive, and have encouraged me every step of the way, and I could not thank them enough. I hope that in sharing this and in sharing where I've been and how I've struggled and sort of fought over the last year can help someone in some way. That if this isn't something you've struggled with your whole life, but you are at a point where you're starting to identify that something's not right and you're not feeling right, and even if you can't put words to it, to ask for help, to tell somebody, that there is help in a lot of ways, and it may or may not be medication, it may or may not be counseling, but that you find the right fit for you. Finding a church and working out and finding great friends have all been part of getting me to a healthier place and getting me to a spot where I'm learning and I'm comfortable moving forward and believing that my journey is still being written. My story is still being written, and my story involves struggling with depression after a major injury, and learning about myself from it. I hope that somebody can learn from my story. Thank you for your interest, for listening and watching, and I hope that in some way that it helps. So thanks.